As I begin this video, I encourage you to put on your thinking cap, for there is a lot of abstract thinking to consider. In part 9 of this series, I propose that the story of the rich man and Lazarus is a parable, based on the two preceding stories found in Luke, chapters 12 and 16. There was a certain rich man, Jesus said. Not just a rich man, but a certain rich man. And there was a certain beggar named Lazarus who was laid at his gate. In the seventh prophecy to the church in Laodicea, the phrase, "I am rich, have become wealthy, and have need of nothing," identifies a certain rich man, while the phrase, "and do not know that you are wretched, miserable, poor, blind, and naked," identifies the certain beggar, Lazarus. Ever wonder why Jesus named the beggar but not the rich man? As mentioned, my thinking about all of this is certainly abstract. But isn't that the point of a parable? When we consider the parables of the certain rich man in Luke 12:16 through 21 and Luke 16:1 through 13, I believe they correspond with the parable of the rich man and Lazarus. When brought together, we have a better overall understanding of how pride in possessions prevents us from walking in the unconditional love of the Father and Son. There is an event involving an actual rich man that fits quite well in all of this, found in Mark 10:17 through 31. While discussing this subject with my brother, he immediately brought this story up, for which I am thankful. When we read the rich man's question and the Lord's response, it fits hand in glove with what we are considering. These three parables and one event all correspond to the falling away Paul spoke of in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, which Jesus confirmed in the messages to the churches in Revelation. Let's return to our passages from Luke 16. There was a certain rich man who was clothed in purple and fine linen and fared sumptuously every day. But there was a certain beggar named Lazarus, full of sores, who was laid at his gate, desiring to be fed with the crumbs which fell from the rich man's table. Moreover, the dogs came and licked his sores. So it was that the beggar died and was carried by the angels to Abraham's bosom. The rich man also died and was buried. To put it plainly, the certain rich man refers to the soul or self that is carnal due to pride, while the certain beggar denotes its opposite, old self and the new self. Note that Lazarus dies first. His death is reflected in the fifth church in Sardis, where the Lord tells them, "I know your works, that you have a name, that you are alive, but you are dead." No, not dead physically, but in a spiritual sense, having left their first love from the beginning. This death correlates with the two witnesses in Revelation 11, who are overcome and killed by the beast, and whose dead bodies lie in the street of the great city, which spiritually is called Sodom and Egypt. Dead bodies refers to a form of godliness. For when the love of God and others dims, then we turn to ritual and rote to justify our lack of fervent charity. Abraham's bosom speaks first of his wives, Hagar and Sarah, which equates to the two covenants, indicating the divine process of God reflected in the principle of sowing and reaping. The death of the rich man again reflects the divine process of God working. For is it not true that the old and new self abide within? The fact that the rich man is buried indicates that the old self is crucified with him in order that the body of sin might be brought to nothing, so that we would no longer be enslaved to sin. Might this be why Paul stated, "For you died, and your life is hidden with Christ in God"? The rich man or old self has no place in his kingdom. The phrase, "sleep in the dust of the earth," is adequate in describing what is meant by buried. So too, the Lord's remarks in Matthew 23:27 through 28. Now, returning to Luke 16. And being in torments in Hades, he lifted up his eyes and saw Abraham afar off and Lazarus in his bosom. Then he cried and said, Father Abraham, have mercy on me, and send Lazarus that he may dip the tip of his finger in water and cool my tongue, for I am tormented in this flame. But Abraham said, Son, remember that in your lifetime you received your good things, and likewise Lazarus evil things. But now he is comforted and you are tormented. Here, our word torments is the word we examined in Part 8, meaning touchstone, indicating the criterion by which we are judged, which is the message of the cross. For this reason, the flame in this parable refers to the lake of fire. No wonder Jesus told the seventh church, I counsel you to buy from me gold refined in the fire, that you may be rich. No doubt, true wealth is treasures in heaven. As noted, our word tormented is a different word than torments, meaning to grieve, taken from the root meaning, grief. This aligns perfectly with the story of the rich man in Mark, chapter 10. Then Jesus, looking at him, loved him and said to him, One thing you lack. Go your way, sell whatever you have, and give to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven. And come, take up the cross and follow me. But he was sad at this word, and went away sorrowful, for he had great possessions. Do you see it? When Jesus told the rich man to sell what he had and give to the poor and take up the cross, the rich man was sad at this word and went away sorrowful, for he had great possessions. This aligns with our word tormented. The torments the rich man felt were in Hades, meaning unseen, typifying our inability to see or perceive the things of the kingdom of God. What did Paul say about the carnal mind? It is enmity against God, for it is not subject to the law of God, nor indeed can be. Even though the rich man had kept all the commandments from his youth, he failed to see the spiritual nature or essence of the law, which is unconditional love. And besides all this, between us and you, there's a great gulf fixed, so that those who want to pass from here to you cannot, nor can those from there pass to us. What is the great gulf that stands between the rich man and Lazarus? Might this gulf have something to do with the following? However, the spiritual is not first, but the natural, and afterward the spiritual. The first man was of the earth, made of dust. The second man is the Lord from heaven. As was the man of dust, so also are those who are made of dust. And as is the heavenly man, so also are those who are heavenly. And as we have borne the image of the man of dust, we shall also bear the image of the heavenly man. Now this I say, brethren, that flesh and blood cannot inherit the kingdom of God, nor does corruption inherit incorruption. Behold, I tell you a mystery. We shall not all sleep, but we shall all be changed. What is this great gulf? Flesh and blood cannot inherit the kingdom of God. No, we are not talking about salvation, but about inheritance, the placement of a son, that which Jesus experienced at the Jordan River. Friend, the divine process that the Lord established from the beginning cannot be circumvented. First, the natural, and afterward the spiritual. It will not be otherwise. All of us must pass through this great gulf. At this point, I will close. In the next study, we'll finish up with the parable of the rich man and Lazarus.